Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello, it's Dr. Gemma, and this is episode 249 of the new series of the Cognitive Podcast. Boy, we have a lot of good things today. By the way, today is September 3rd, 2025 at 5:46 p.m. Yes, you got it right. I am recording this on the last day of my youth. Tomorrow I turn 65 and I'm old. Can you believe it? From young to old overnight. Terrifying. All kidding aside, because of course we all know I will never age. I have failed to do so thus far. In fact, I pride myself on my immaturity. Oh, we're off to a flying start. Meanwhile, your comments are very welcome. Please comment on our blog at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com, or you can go to our group on Ravelry. And I would like to extend my warm thanks this week to Deviant Stitch and DC Elaine Knits and Turbo Gal, all of whom sent me warm birthday wishes over on Ravelry. And yes, by the way, since one of you asked, the beloved son is currently at our local community college. We wanted to give him a chance to adjust to the college world. We will talk about going on to a 4-year program when we are sure he's comfortable working at this one. And it's very nice for us right now. It allows me to keep my job. It allows many good things. In the meantime, too, I want to point out the California community college system is extraordinarily good, ranked against the community colleges of other states. And one of the great things they do, his units will be credited towards his degree. That is guaranteed as long as he pays attention to the classes he's signing up for. They will go towards his degree at any California university that takes state money. Got it? Yeah. This is why we send him to the less expensive option instead of having him live away from home, and let him get his basic stuff done before we send him off to a 4-year school. Meanwhile, I want to quote Turbo Gal. Turbo Gal talked about socializing during video games, and I want to say I agree with this. She said, I'll add one comment on video games, because I was talking about that last week. Computer time, that is video game time, was something we fought with our son about, blah, blah, blah. We limited it, but eventually I realized not all video games are alike, because for him, it was the way his group of friends socialized. That is, that he'd be on the computer with headphones, they were live playing video games with his friends, and they're talking to each other throughout the game. This could have been the same conversation they would have had on a basketball court. They just happened to be in the virtual environment of the game. This was not the only way he interacted with his friends. Many times they were in person, but it made me realize that not all video gaming is the same, and you can build real connections with virtual interactions, and maybe that's going to be easier for this generation because they're digital natives. And so now her son is off in college and he stays in touch with those friends by gaming regularly together. Yeah, there's a lot in that statement. I have known groups who video game together and socialized outside of the video games. My concern is with the people who don't socialize outside of the video games, who are using video games and calling those people friends, and they've never encountered them in real time. They have no idea who they actually are. However, I do think Turbo Gal is making some excellent points, that you can blend it with other activities and it doesn't become toxic or as addictive. In other words, she's describing a person who is addicted to his friendships, and they use that to play the video games, as opposed to someone who's addicted to the video games and they use that to form the friendships. So I think that's a really important thing, and I think it has to be said. There are people who are engaging in video games in a healthy way. Can you build real connections with virtual interactions? Not unless you have real-time connection, I would think. I'm kind of holding my judgment on that because I've had some friends over the years who I only knew through virtual interactions, and I miss them to this day. I'm thinking of one who died unexpectedly. So all I can say is, yeah, I think anything is possible in this wild world, but I think my fear is the people who video game to the exclusion of face-to-face contact. And sure, if you meet up with your friends and you video game, yeah, that's fine, as long as you're having real physical interaction with your friends. Meanwhile, again, all my thanks to the people signing up for CFR. I'll come back to that in a second. I'm going to slip in an extra thank you here, and an extra special thank you to Danny, our dear friend from the Seattle region, who seems likely to be coming down to CFR. And we just found out that our Alexa Pro is coming, our own Alexis. And I am so grateful to both of them. And Danny, thank you for the save when I really needed it. And Loretta, 1031, rats, honest to God, I don't know what I would have done without you today. Thank you so much for all the insight and the wisdom as we go into the hardcore planning for CFR 11. So thank you so much, my friends. And I want to thank my community on Finch, on Reddit, on the ground in the SCV, and of course, most of all, in this group. You can see a picture of my bird, Courage. She's in the Galapagos right now. We're kind of enjoying it. It's a nice change of pace, the things that she is discovering. And they're also doing this month a theme where every day, if you do enough things, you get a few prizes. This is a normal part of the game, but this time the theme is about crafting. So she's wearing a crafting apron and she's a pair of craft scissors, and she is wearing what apparently seamstresses like to wear, a kind of cute little kerchief on her head with cherries embroidered on it. Whatever. I didn't know we wore that. Anyway, I really do like this theme, and it's very, very cute. Now, let's get down to CFR 11. We've had some good developments. Okay, the registration information. You can go to the link in the show notes where it says all info is right here. Here is in blue. That's the link. It'll take you to the information thread on Ravelry. Okay, the date, of course, is October 11th. And we are continually developing the thread. In fact, I believe I need to update a few things on the thread. Meanwhile, you can register by sending $10 to me via PayPal. There is the address in the show notes. And anybody can sign up. The hotel, we're not at 25 people right now, so we don't have the discounted room rate. I'm really sorry on that. Meanwhile, though, we have some good news on the classes. Drew Caitlin is offering an embroidery and blackwork class, and Lefty Rebel Knitter is offering a class on Russian grafting, which she says is not to be confused with the Russian join. She says, I use it on baby booties and blankets, and I think it's way better than Kitchener for sock toes. There might be a tiny bit of homework here. Okay, so we do have some classes, and hopefully Lefty Rebel Knitter let us know, actually Drew Caitlin as well, let us know any homework or any prep stuff we need to bring with us. Meanwhile, what is on my hooks and needles? Well, I keep carrying around this one project bag, and this is the bag that we gave away at CFR 8. I believe that's 2016. It's a very pretty bag. It's in a canvas bag, and it's printed and all that. I've been carrying this around, and I looked at it and I said, I really value this. Now, it happens I've got 2 or 3 of them, so I value it, and I've got spares. But I said, why am I just still carrying this around? Why don't I wash it and then use it as a pillow? And so I did. And I have to tell you, these things make great pillows because all I did was cut off the straps and the band that was around the top holding the straps on. And after that, I turned it inside out, seamed across that one open side. The rest is closed nicely because it's a bag after all. Seamed across it, I left about 3-4 inches, turned it right side out, stuffed it, and then hand sewed it shut. I used a kind of modified, I guess I'd call it a blanket stitch to sew it shut. I used white thread, snow white thread, can't even see it. It looks amazing. So there it is, the CFR 8 2016 pillow. if you have these bags around, I suggest it. I have a few project bags, too many. And I'm realizing that some of them are about to go this pathway into pillows. And I think it's really kind of cool to have the bags from my own retreat around the house. Okay, I have no pride. I regret that in the last 2 retreats where I gave out bags, they were this kind of rough paper pulp sort of thing. I really wish we'd been able to stick with the canvas bags, but costs, of course, went up. Meanwhile, you can see my next finished object is Chuck the Woobles duck. I kind of impulse bought this kit many moons ago, about a year ago now, I would think, probably about 10 months ago. And he was a one-off made for, I believe, Missouri Star Quilting Company. And I really liked him. Now, if you know the Woobles, you know there has been a duck pattern, and he is that same duck. They just changed the yarn colors. So if you have that duck, I don't remember his name, you can certainly just get some yellow and white yarn and make my buddy Chuck here. But I made him in the Barnes & Noble at Glendale Americana at the Galleria. I just sat there over a cup of iced coffee, there you can see it, and I chucked right along there and got him going. And I'm very happy with him. He's an easy project, like all the basic egg-shaped Woobles. He's just an easy sit-down project that you can sit down with him and crank through him and get exactly what you want. I'm very happy about him. I will talk a little bit more about his genesis because there was a sort of funny event there. Meanwhile, I also finished the Purple Lacy Summer Shrug. This one I oriented the same way as is oriented in the pattern from Lion Brand, but I did not like how wide I had made it. So I knew if I just went straight across the arms and seamed them, it was going to be way too big for me, and I didn't like that idea. So I stopped when it was shoulder to shoulder, like tip of the shoulder to tip of the shoulder as a scarf. And then I folded the edge together and double crocheted in the round to make the sleeves. My sleeve pattern is very simple. It's simply 10 rows of double crochet stitches. At the end of the 10 rows, I do a shell stitch in every other one of the double crochet stitches, and that finishes it with a nice edge. I also do that around the open edge of the body part. You can't see it on this one because I hadn't done it yet. I forgot about it. So I went back and got it. But there I am, modeling the Purple Lacy Shrug. I think this means I've got the turquoise one, the white one that I made several years ago to go to Kansas to pick up Queenie. And I've got this one. And I have a multicolor one with a white background and a pink one still on the hook. So I'm looking forward to finishing those. And this summer, for some reason, I get a wardrobe of emotional support chickens and sock yarn and these shrugs and a few stray Woobles. And these seem to be my summer projects, and I'm enjoying that. Meanwhile, no progress on anything else. I just want to finish these little guys. And on Dizzy Blondes, I am still spinning the Lisa Souza BFL in the colorway Giverny. Had some wheel problems. My wheel isn't really going fast enough, so I'm getting a very fluffy kind of, it looks like Lopi yarn out of this. Still, it should make a great sweater. I am doing this on the Electric Eel 6.1. By the way, I want to point out, I've got a shacked wooden wheel, a portable, and I'm going to bring that to CFR and hopefully sell it or raffle it, however that goes. And also, I'm trying to decide what other wheel. I want to take at least 2 wheels. I'd really like to take more, but I'm not sure what's going to fit in the Prius of Love. So I am looking at, I believe I have an Ashford portable that I would like to also take. And I have an antique wheel that is a little parlor wheel for flax that I would like to take. So I'm thinking about just getting those 3 wheels gone and moving them along. So if you are coming to this, or you know anybody who's looking for wheels that are going to be pretty inexpensive, I don't really want to charge $500 or $600 for these. I'm debating what the cost will be, and they will vary. They are probably not going to have drive bands on them. You can make your own drive band. So they're not going to be up to spin because they won't have drive bands on them. So these, I'm hoping, I do believe the Shacked has a drive band on it, but these, I don't expect these to be expensive. I really just want them out of my home, and I'd love to make a few $100 off them. Okay, but we're not talking 700 or 800 wheels here, guys. And I may raffle them and like charge $20 a ticket. And we'll see how that goes. We'll see what everybody wants to do. But I'm pretty sure they are coming with me because I don't have to bring the usual tons of stuff I've had to bring to previous CFRs. Having said that, let's move on to a strategy. And I mentioned this briefly last episode, and I want to come back to it. And this is the idea of how there is a trend to say, I am an introvert. I don't like people. And of course, when I talk about human nature, I am always pointing out, no, you're not. People need other people. We literally get depressed and die without other people. So where's this all coming from? Well, it's interesting to me because there is an introversion diagnosis. It's called schizoid personality disorder. It's the people who genuinely do just want to be alone. Now, how does that become a personality disorder? Well, you're not a disorder unless you're interfering with a person's ability to function socially, academically, on the job, in the family. Okay, so schizoid PD, you almost never see it in therapy because they don't come to therapy. They're perfectly happy the way they are. They see no reason whatsoever to call it a problem and come to therapy. The only time I would say they need therapy is if it really is interfering with their ability to maintain a job. There's a lot of overlap there, too, with autism. You get people who, they don't want to be alone, but they feel like they can't relate to other people because they have autism or symptoms of autism. Please don't go diagnose yourself. I'm going to beg you right now. So they don't get along and they're unhappy. And again, you can hear that's becoming clinical. Is that schizoid personality disorder? Well, we don't gild the lily. If somebody has autism, we're not going to give them schizoid PD on top of it. That's just too much. There is no medication for schizoid personality disorder, and we almost never see it in treatment. Okay, that would be the truest introversion there is. I simply have a job. The classic example is the guy who runs the movies at a movie theater. He doesn't need anybody. He just sits up there all day long running the movies and living in that world and watching the movies, etc. How real is that depiction? I have no idea. That's one of the few people I don't think I've met in real time. But the idea is that is as close as introversion will ever get to being a disorder that is treated by psychologists. And it doesn't come into our office unless there is a problem on the job, whatever. And even that, if the problem is severe enough, that's more likely to go through psychiatry because they need the letter because they can't keep a job, So that's the problem. So why are people walking around saying, I am an introvert? Well, my best version of this is they are overstimulated. That is, there was a really good study that came out a few months ago, and it shows how Americans in general were overstimulated by the hyper coverage of the 2024 presidential election. And they were evaluating everybody on both sides of the vote and said people are coming away from this damaged, traumatized. Yes, we live in an overstimulating environment. And the problem with that is when you are in an overstimulating environment, when you are emotionally exhausted by this, you are going to become negative. You're going to get depressed. In other words, if you need a rest, if you can't sleep, you become depressed and anxious. Possibly not both at the same time, but one will probably follow the other sooner or later. I don't care which one you start with. Humans do need to rest, and we need serious, hardcore rest. We need REM sleep in our rest. It solves a lot of problems. It heals traumatic memory. It allows us to review in our dreams the events of our previous day and to correct them. We also problem solve in the deeper levels of sleep. Also, on a more body level, we make ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is the energy for our muscles to move. We do all sorts of good things while we're asleep. And if you cannot get sound sleep, you have a serious problem. Remember, the ways you maintain yourself over the long term to reduce mood issues: eat, sleep, move, focus, okay? If you don't sleep, you're going to eat too much carb and sugar to try to build energy because you don't have enough in your muscles. So you're going to gain weight. If you don't sleep, you're not going to move. You're going to say, I'm too tired to go for a run. I'm too tired to work out today. If you don't sleep, you're not going to focus. It's very hard to achieve mindfulness. You'll just fall asleep if you try to meditate. It's very hard to achieve a focused state. Eat, sleep, move, focus. If you get any of those wrong, everything gets messed up. So you must sleep, and that's hard to do if you're overstimulated. Your body cannot slow down because you're in fight or flight. You're looking for danger. You're hyper aroused. Okay? So the answer here is, and I guess the strategy is, instead of saying, I am an introvert and I have to be alone, what would be the better option? It would be to say, I am overstimulated and I need some quiet. Now, if you can get quiet with a friend, go get quiet with a friend. We've all had those long, lazy summer afternoons where we go to a friend's house and we just hang out. And I fear that the younger generations don't get those as much because they hang out with video. Sorry, I don't mean to go back to that, and I certainly don't mean to be bashing at Turbo Gal, who I think was making some good points. The point is, though, hanging out, being bored, allowing yourself to simply slow, you do it because your body needs it. You're not doing it because you're lazy or useless. How do I know this? People who are lazy or useless get depressed when they hang out. You can't hang out too much without getting bad mood. So, the reality here is if you're overstimulated, you should seek stillness. But that doesn't mean you have to be alone. Like I said, many of us would hang out with our friends on long, lazy summer afternoons. Remember those days where you went to the pool or the lake or the ocean and you spread a towel at the side of whatever body of water and you jumped in the water, you swam around, then you came out and you just laid on the towel and dried off for a few minutes? Yeah, that's reducing stimulation. You might have talked to a friend or sipped on a soda or something, but you relax the stimulation. So when you are feeling like you need to retreat from humanity, I would consider instead you need to retreat from stimulation. You need to turn off your phone. You need to go to a quiet place where your ears are not assaulted by a lot of noise. Or you need to put on your noise-canceling earphones. You might want to be with a friend who's calming. And you don't have to talk to your friend about your problems. Sometimes you can just hang out together. And of course, you can turn off other things. You can just eat cold, bland foods or not eat anything. You can just take deep breaths, get yourself into the open air so you're not breathing recirculated air. But if you are thinking you are an introvert, or if your kid is walking around telling you, hey, no, I'm an introvert, I can't be with people, blah, 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 that's probably not true. But what you're listening to is the sound of this insane overstimulation that is going on around many of us at this phase of history. And sometimes you really need to turn it off. Now, in the good old days, we talked about an internet fast or an internet diet. My husband is currently on a fast with the current political regime because he said it's just bad news every day and he just is going to take a few days off and then go back and catch up because it'll still be there. Okay, and that's what I'm talking about with a fast or a diet on the internet, that you can remove yourself from things. I have not been using Facebook, Instagram, or Blue Sky for a few weeks for the same reason. I realized I was overstimulated, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't relax. So I put myself on my summer schedule of early morning runs, and I was doing pretty well till I bashed my right foot, which is now healed. But now that weather is too hot to run, I'm feeling a little bit overstimulated and overtense. Thank goodness this week it's cooling off. I'm hoping for a good run tomorrow morning. Because really, there's no better way to celebrate becoming an old lady because of a calendar date than going for a 3-mile run. But anyway, all that aside, do not start categorizing yourself or your loved ones as introverts. There is no psychiatric definition of introversion, as far as I know. And I think it's become more of a catchphrase, a soundbite, as you will, an earworm for the younger generations. The reality is, if you feel like an introvert, that's because you're overstimulated and you really just need to seek silence. One more thing, we frequently hear in my profession how the younger generations do not know what to do about boredom. That's right. Because they have stimulation from all the handheld computer stuff, I don't just mean video games. I mean doom scrolling. I mean tweeting each other, things like that. Because they have that all the time, they very rarely hold still and allow themselves to stop. So this is the chronic overstimulation. Most people simply need to take silence breaks. I really recommend that you turn off your eyes and your ears for these breaks more than anything else. Get a sleep mask, get noise-blocking headphones, and just listen to the silence, whatever. But please do not give way to categorizing yourself as some kind of weirdo or wrong or unpopular because you believe you're an introvert. You're probably just overstimulated. Everybody needs a peaceful, quiet timeout from time to time. Shoot. Well, I had Saturday, Sunday, and Monday and Tuesday off. And I had to sort of draw an artificial line here on where I'm going to stop this episode and begin the next. I also have Thursday the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th off. Yes, that's right. I worked only one day. It was today, Wednesday the 3rd. And on each side of that, I had a 4-day weekend. And I will talk more about what went on Tuesday because I wasn't supposed to get Tuesday off, but I did for a medical appointment, but that's for next week. So, Saturday, I took the train and then the bus to Los Feliz, caught the bus to the observatory. And it was wonderful as usual. And I will talk about that in the blather. Sunday and Monday were so doggone hot that I just went to the Glendale Galleria and tried to hide in the air conditioning. All of these days involved me doing about 3 miles of walking, so I'm pretty happy about that. And I got a wooble done in the Galleria. I mean, it was really very happy. I am not doing the hiking I want to do. I'm starting to look at hiking Griffith Park, but I can't get to it in this heat. I'm not going to do that. It is blindingly hot. If you go to the top of the show notes, however, you will see me drinking what has to be the world's worst cold brew coffee that I got at the cafe at Griffith Observatory. Supposedly Wolfgang Puck runs that cafe. If he does, he's got to be taught how to make proper coffee. It was so bitter and awful. But they also didn't have cream for it. I would have had to use a creamer that has added sugar, so I put butter in it. The butter did not stir in well. Ugh. However, it was worth it because for my $6 for that stupid cold brew, I got to sit on the balcony, the terrace outside the cafe, and the view is phenomenal. And I highly recommend sometime you go to the Griffith Observatory, go through the cafe, eat if you must, but go sit on that terrace and just watch Los Angeles go by. It was amazing. Meanwhile, I continue with my links to upcoming races. The next is the Be the Lights, an evening run on September 21st. 18 days, we're getting there. On to the fluffy books. A lot of books this week. I have really enjoyed it. I really have taken time off. I was really feeling kind of at the end of my rope. So I've taken a lot of time off this week and it's been great. I finished Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales. I cannot recommend Heather Fawcett's books enough. Just fantastic. Links to all this are in the show note, by the way. So that made me pick up her book, The Grace of Wild Things, which I think I mentioned. I finished that. It's phenomenal. It's very, very moving. And meanwhile, I started listening to The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I quite like it. It's not what I expected. I quite like it. The characters, it's disturbing because they're English, but they're terribly Americanized. And I can't figure out, I think the author is British because she's just too good on local reference for me to believe anything else in cultural reference. But it is a little disturbing how Americanized they sound. I'm sorry our culture is rubbing off on you guys in all the wrong ways. But it's a lot of fun. And then I picked up A Wolf Called Wander, which is allegedly a young adult book that got tremendous attention, and it should. It is a fictionalized chronicle of a real wolf, OR7, who was tagged in, I think, like northeast Washington State, over on the boundary northeast Oregon State, over on the boundary that it shares with, is that Idaho? And by Hell's Canyon. Just amazing. And this wolf apparently wandered down across Oregon and ended up in California in the mountains there. And the author of this writes an incredibly sensitive, sweet story of that trip. And this book is a masterpiece. It is so beautiful. Link in the show notes. She reduces her language to the way she thinks a wolf would talk and think. So, for example, the wolf sees sheep and he talks about a pack of sheep. Because why would he call it a herd? He's a wolf. He understands the concept of having a pack. And she really maxes out everything he possibly could have seen on this trip. It is so good, and it is so poetic, and it is so beautifully written. And it brought back to me all the love and the joy I felt in my youth in the forests of northeast Pennsylvania when I used to wander for hours by myself. I was probably overstimulated, you know. But anyway, this book is so full of this deep love of what is really gorgeous in nature, in unspoiled nature. And I can't recommend it enough. This is A Wolf Called Wander. And I'm reading The Mysterious Benedict Society. This kept popping up in my feed, and I kept thinking, it sounds like a children's book, and it is. Kind of a tween book. I'm really enjoying it, and I'll tell you why. It starts with our hero having to take a test because he's perceived as sort of different from other kids. This book really captures the way I felt as a kid because I was gifted, cross-eyed, and a little different. This author nails it. She just nails the way, I think it's a she, nails the way that kind of kid is experiencing the reactions of the people around them. Just fascinating. So that's The Mysterious Benedict Society. As you can tell, I'm enjoying my reading. Something I really like. Oh, this is part of my wonderful weekend story. So I'm at the Galleria and I'm sitting and I'm waiting for a bus. And this woman is to my right, behaving a little peculiarly, hunched over a bench in the boiling sun, smoking cigarettes and kind of muttering to herself. And another woman about my age gets up from the other side of her and comes over and sits on the other side of me, away from this person. And she says, no like, smoke, no like, behave. And I said, right. And I realized, poor thing doesn't speak English. Then she said, are you Ukraine? And I said, really? Next thing I know, she whips out her phone, turns on the Google Translate app, and starts talking to me, and then holding the phone up, and the phone is translating it and speaking it aloud in very clear English. I had a really cool conversation with this Ukrainian woman about what it's like to leave your homeland and come to Southern California, how she felt about it. She's hoping to go home soon. This was interrupted by my bus coming, and I had to catch the bus because the previous day I caught a later train and they canceled the trains due to the heat. So I was determined to get to the train station and catch my normal train, which I believed they would not cancel. What a shame. This was a privilege. Well, of course, in the middle of this, I downloaded the app to my phone. So we both started talking to our phones and holding them up to each other. It was more fun. So something I really like, this thing is a miracle. The Google Translate app. I hope that you have the privilege of using this someday with someone who does not speak your native tongue, because it is really a privilege to speak to a person in their own language and to just interact that way. I can't explain it, but it really gets me excited. I had never heard Ukrainian spoken. It sounds vaguely like Russian, much smoother It doesn't have the harsh end stops that I think of in Russian. I may be getting that wrong. Linguists, forgive me. This sort of bubbled off the tongue more than ha, ha, ha kind of sound that I associate more with Russian. Russian is a very beautiful language, don't get me wrong, but this was even smoother. Meanwhile, Project Proton. Yes, the back episodes, I loaded episodes 1 through 50 of the original series of this podcast. Why the original series again? Somebody requested it, and I thought instead of being hard-nosed, just load them and let them get this. And then I probably, for October, I will go back and do 1 to 50 of the new series. I do want to get through the new series for anybody who's collecting them. Then I will circle back and do it all over again. But somebody asked for episodes 1 to 50 of the original series because they missed the original upload. And I thought, sure, don't be so hard-nosed. Let them have it. Put a lid on it. The time is passing for Keterade. One last shot. There it is. And on to the blather. Well, okay. So, intolerable heat. That was really what was going on. So I'm going to start with Saturday. My notes are a little back to front. I went up to Griffith Observatory, and I stayed a little later because I wanted to see the 12:45 show, which is typically the show called Centered in the Universe. It was fantastic. It was so good. It was about how we know what we know about the universe and where we are located in the universe. It was so beautifully done. And at the end, it starts with, here are the mythical stories of various cultures about the sun. And then it goes through scientific discovery. And meanwhile, they're projecting on the ceiling the changes in the way the universe looks to humans on Earth. And at the end, of course, you see multiple universes. It was stunning. It was stunning. And what I really liked was it was a calm, focused, fact-based, crystal clear answer to all the crazy, like the Bible says the earth is flat and we are at the center, and I mean all this crazy stuff. It was a beautiful answer to that. It was simply a wonderful show, and I highly recommend it. So then I went back down and caught my lunch at Starfish, and they were very friendly, but it was so beastly hot. And now I was running late. And so I also, by the way, did one other thing. I took the Griffith Observatory bus down the hill, and it turns left onto Los Feliz Boulevard instead of going down into Los Feliz. And normally I get off at that first corner right there. I didn't. I let it take me to Hillhurst because one of my guidebooks said you really should see Hillhurst. So I walked down Hillhurst, got to see that. I wasn't impressed, but a lot of coffee houses there looked good. At any rate, so it was unbelievably hot. I get to the train station. I'm taking a later train. It's canceled. They're having problems with heat and cars getting stuck on the tracks, however that happens due to the heat. So I got home a little after 8. It was a little bit too much for me. I was exhausted. So the next day, I took my Chuck the Duck kit and I went down to the Galleria. And I decided first that I would investigate Brand Boulevard. And it was very hot to do that. So I looked up a sushi place called Crazy Rockin' Sushi. And you can see a picture of the interior there from my table. And I decided I would take the bus up to Brand and, above the Galleria, I think Broad, and just walk down it the way I'd walked down Hillhurst the day before. So I walked down Brand because there's a lot of lower end stores there instead of the really high end stuff at the Galleria and the Americana. So that was really nice, just window shopping, and I was really surprised at the range of things that were there, including a California Pizza Kitchen, which I didn't even know existed there. A lot of chain restaurants, higher end chain restaurants, some nice stuff up there. So anyway, I stopped in at Crazy Rockin' Sushi and had a perfectly nice lunch that was pretty much what I normally order at Starfish. And Crazy Rockin' has a really good deal. They have a menu. You buy one, you get the other one half off. And they have some very good selections, and the sushi was good. So if you are looking to gorge yourself on sushi, I really would recommend Crazy Rockin' Sushi. The crowd seemed to be mostly Asian, so I think it kind of meets requirements for authenticity. But the food was great. The service was okay. On Sunday, I went back, and I decided to actually do Chuck the Duck. So I did him. Doesn't that sound terrible? I crocheted him, sitting in the coffeehouse section of the Barnes & Noble at the Glendale Americana section. Well, this young man comes and sits down at my table, which was great. I ended up alone at a 4-person table, which almost never happens there. And he asked if he could sit. So he's staring at Chuck. And at this point, I had gotten about halfway down the egg shape that is Chuck's body. And I stopped, and I had marked, as I was crocheting, I had marked where the eyes would go with removable stitch markers. So I stopped and put Chuck's head, as it were, the top half of the egg, on the tabletop. And he's yellow, and he's got this white stripe around him, and I restarted the yellow section. But now I start putting safety eyes in, and this guy is staring at it. He looked like he was about 22 or 23. He finally says to me, "Did you make that?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Yourself?" And I'm thinking, is this a joke or something? And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "How would you know how to do that?" And I said, "Well, this is a kit, but I'm reviewing it for my podcast, and I enjoy doing it, of course." He said, "Well, how long have you been doing that?" And I said, "This one? For about the last half hour." And he said, No, that thing." I said, "Crochet?" He said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, it's hard to explain." I said, "In 12th grade, I was forced to take a sewing class in my high school." And he said, "They used to do that in high schools?" Oh, boy, did I feel sad. And I said, "Yes, they did." And I said, to get a higher grade, I embroidered on one of the skirts I made because it was so plain. And then I realized I liked doing that and I liked designing it. So I taught myself embroidery and cross stitch over the next few years. And then from there, I began to sew my own clothes and sew other things that I wanted or needed, like pillows for the house. And then I basically taught myself to knit. And then I taught myself to crochet and to spin. And he's looking at me and I said, "So, I've been crocheting probably a good, probably about 16 or 17 years now." But I said it all started when I was in high school and I was forced to learn a skill. And he said, "Why do they not do this in high schools now?" And I said, "Search me. I'm really, really sorry they don't." Because guys learned wood shop and they learned basic car maintenance, and girls learned sewing and cooking. And I said, it's just really sad. But he was so astonished by this thing. So anyway, I finished Chuck the Coffeehouse Duck and posed him. And the young man kept staring the whole time, watching this thing. And I put wings on it in the beak, and I think he was a little disappointed with the final product. It did come out looking the way it's supposed to, by the way. But it doesn't mean everybody's going to like the way the old style of Wooble looks, the original Wooble style. Okay, and then I went outside and met my Ukrainian buddy for the first time, and we had our talk. So it was a pretty exciting weekend. The heat was just horrible. And it was sad because I didn't get to do things I wanted to do, like running or horsing around outdoors. I really was just hiding. However, that was good enough. Meanwhile, the birthday pavilion continues to develop. I was told to bring slippers to it so that I could take my shoes off and have slippers and putter around in there without shoes if I want to get up in the middle of the night, because apparently it has beds in it. I have not been in it yet, but it also has a beautiful indoor-outdoor rug pinned to the ground by sandbags in front of it, and it's got cushy chairs, plastic chairs with wonderful cushions sitting on that rug, and it's got a lovely little, I guess I'd call it a coffee table or a craft table. It's a little bit low for a dining table with some more foldable chairs in front of it. So I don't know what's in that thing, but the outside's impressive. Having said that, you can see all the usual links to the lifelines for our LGBTQA plus siblings, and you can see links to all the books I use and the resources I like to buy, the skills and techniques, my own link tree. You can also see information about ICE, how to avoid them, how to use the ICE Block app, how to report where they are. I want to give a special thanks to the district attorney in the city of Philadelphia, my hometown, who says we're just going to arrest them. If they are abducting people on the street, we will simply arrest them and charge them. And he said this is legal under the laws of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. They do not get to break the state laws. That is in their charter as well. You go, sir. You go. And you can see my calendar and all the knitting groups and events down in the Santa Clarita Valley. As you hear this, I will just be starting the birthday break that goes September 4th to September 7th. I will not have celebrated my birthday yet, but this has been the birthday week of the great books, and to top it all off, I'm watching the second half of Wednesday this evening. I'm watching at least one episode, which I'm enjoying. There you go. There is my calendar. Minerva gets the last word. Feeder and waterer. Love it. My bathroom counters are so much more clean with the automatic feeder. She doesn't spill stuff all over the place. I don't know why. Maybe because the dish is more broad and wide. The waterer, yes, she tends to lap at the edge and knock water over the edge. I put a big kitchen towel under it, and my counters are clean for the first time in who knows how long. I love these things. I have to hope they keep working. Minerva is there in a picture. She's on the back of the couch. She is watching Cat TV out the front window there through our gingham curtains. She is not talking to me because she liked it better when I hand fed her. I'm not joking. She still comes to me and asks me to put my magic fingers in her food. I'm not sure what she thinks is going on there. However, Minerva does know that she is a member of a community like all of us. Like all of us, Minerva understands that when you take care of the community, you are taking care of the individual, and everybody's rights will be protected. We are stronger together, and individualism just divides us and leaves us helpless and exposed. Let's be honest. We are better together. Having said that, everybody stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.